What is up, everyone? You know who I am, Jack Slater, the comic outlaw. Yeah, back again. Big as life and twice as rotten, if you know what I'm saying. You know, your boy's been gone for a while, but sure haven't forgotten. You know what time it is. It's Funko time. It's Funko time. And as a bonus, we're going to be doing a DVD review. Ha! You're getting a double header today, people. What do you think about that? Yeah. So thieves, hoodlums, outlaws, renegades, lend me your ears. Somebody cracked me open a beer. But anyways, check out this Funko of Hulk Hogan. Yes, Hogan. Now, yeah, I know. Hogan is a very controversial wrestler over the years. I mean, he's said some things, he's done some things, and, you know, but that's kind of the mystique of who Hulk Hogan is. But let's dive into this. For those that only have a small inkling of who Hulk Hogan is, you sort of know who he is, but, don't know. This man was the biggest thing in the 80s. He was the 80s. He carried the WWE with Hulkamania. It was the biggest thing that ever happened. It built wrestling, and some people credit Vince McMahon with this. Some people credit Hogan. I think it's a collaboration between the two because one wouldn't exist without the other. And it was also good booking. People like Roddy Piper, for example, because a good babyface is only good as the heel that he fights. And Hogan had a lot of good heels. His match with Andre the Giant, for example, when he body slammed him. Now, people have been saying things about the AEW getting WWE has-beens, the Big Show, and stuff like that. Andre was on his last legs at that point, and nobody criticizes Andre. You do it because you love the sport. You know what I mean? So, a little less talk about that. It's just disrespectful to the people who perform day in and day out for us, the fans. But anyways, I'm gonna step off my soapbox, and this is what we're gonna be reviewing. I found it a while back. Hulk Hogan Unreleased Collector Series. Now there's another one with his greatest hits. That one is kind of hard to find. This one is interesting though. This one has a lot of tidbits here. We'll open it up. That way you guys can get an idea of what you're getting into. Now this is a 3-disc set, and it has a bunch of stuff from his career. It even has early stuff from when he was super young, when he wasn't even, Hulkamania wasn't even a inkling in his eye, and he has a very hairy back. And it's funny because Jerry the King Lawler is doing commentary on this, and someone else, and he actually tells a story about how Hogan came up with the idea of putting a razor on a shoehorn and shaving his back. So some of the other wrestlers started doing that. So it's kind of weird. You get like a mix of different stuff here. Televised matches, or matches that were shown once on a Saturday night. That was Raw before, Raw was Raw, it was on Saturday night. But anyways, you get a lot of people like Bob Backlund, Andre the Giant, Savage, Slaughter, Nature Boy, Sting, the Big Boss Man, and it does show the Dungeon of Doom stuff. For those of you who don't know, when Hogan left WWE and went to WCW, he had a lot of creative control, and they built a whole heel group for him to fight. This group was led by Kevin Sullivan, and it had like a Ming or Hatku, the old earthquake. He became the Shark, like a bunch of different people. Kamala, Zeus. It was just a who's who of former 80s bad guys or whoever they could find. And they were the Dungeon of Doom, and they just beat the crap out of Hogan. The Giant was in it too. I gotta say that. They shaved his mustache. And then, I guess it drove Hogan like crazy. And he began wearing black. And if you watch this, it's kind of like the stuff that he was wearing when he first joined the NWO. He's kind of reverted to that. He became a little crazy, and they had this giant cage match with Savage, with the Four Horsemen, and it was cheesy as hell. But most people talk so much crap about the Dungeon of Doom, but it wasn't like WWE was doing any better. I mean, like in the 90s, Kane was a dentist. They're having diaper matches, Ramon and X-Pac before they came over. I mean, so there was plenty of garbage to go around at this time. Wrestling was still trying to find its identity, trying to break out of that cartoonish kind of way of doing things. But this is interesting if you are a Hogan fan. It has a lot of underground matches. It even has him fighting like the Big Boss Man, like just Mr. Perfect, like little things that like only happened once, and it kind of goes through his career. And I just want to say this about Hogan. He gets a lot of crap for when he came back, the whole NWO thing in the WWE, but I think he had one of his best runs. He had a good run with The Rock, and most people don't think so, but I thought that Mr. America thing was funny as hell. His match with Vince McMahon, and Hogan actually did more work when he came back than he kind of did with when he was with the NWO, because he was playing like a chicken shit heel. I thought Hogan's last years in WWE were actually really good. I thought he went out really well. He showed me something. He still had something in the tank. And he was teamed up with Edge. Like I said, he did a lot of different stuff. And of course, he squeezed in a small championship run. But it's Hogan, that man's been a world champion over and over again. And yes, I know they talk so much in WWE how he had creative control and he wouldn't do this and that. And that's just the nature of the business. Business is business. I mean, Stone Cold took his ball and went home, as I recall. Bret Hart didn't want to lose to Shawn Michaels in a certain Montreal event. So things just happen, you know what I mean? And yes, Hogan said some racial things and he was kicked out of the WWE, he's back in, and he's been to court, the whole Gawker thing. So, like I said, he's a very fascinating character in and out of the ring. It's worth actually listening to his interviews. He tells a good story, of course. It's slightly slanted, but when you listen to all the wrestlers talk, or when anybody talks, they're going to slant it a little bit. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. And of course, he's the wrestling persona. He's Hogan. And you can't really take that away from him. Hulkamania is still running wild. And you better believe it, brother. Because when he gets those pythons on you and drops that leg drop, what you gonna do? What are you gonna do when Jack Slater, the comic outlaw, runs wild on you? God, I just had to say it. Had to get out of my system. Had to. But anyways. It's Funko time. Let's open up the Funko, huh? Like I said, Hogan's had a lot of interesting turns. He was a good guy, a bad guy, a good guy. And people actually cheered when he came back as a good guy. When he fought The Rock, he was supposed to be you got to watch that match between him and The Rock. Very good. It kind of turned him back to a good guy. He wore the yellow and gold. He gave the bump to Brock Lesnar. I mean, so like Hogan had a very interesting career after WCW. Check out the Funko. Classic Hogan. Ripping of the shirt. They threw on the bandana, I guess, to cover up the bald spot. Now, like I said, whether you think Hogan was not the greatest of all time, he was just a quick performer, he'd come in, do the leg drop or whatever, he still managed to captivate fans. He was big. He was the prototype for what The Rock, Cena, Stone Cold, all these big champions. And none of that would have happened without Hulkamania. Without this man right here. Hulk Hogan. So I ask you, what are you gonna do, brother? Because Hulkamania is gonna run wild on you. And as always, your main man, Jack Slater, will catch you on the flip side. Laters.